Among a lot I bought from a shuttered law stationer in Bermondsey, I found a bundle of foolscap tied with faded green tape. The outer sheet, in a compact hand, read, "Concerning several violent and unaccountable occurrences at the house of a Mrs. G. of Stockwell, taken down for the instruction of justice." What follows is a transcription of that paper, with Mr. Latham's spelling mostly preserved, save where initials are replaced by names. I offer it without comment, that the reader may judge where reason ends and terror begins. E. Stockwell, the 14th of March, 1772. To my brother Thomas, I am sent out of town on a business so strange I would hardly set it down, save that it explains my absence. Keep this letter safe. Justice Rawlins, long plagued by every nonsense of populace invents, has resolved at last to notice it, lest it swell to riot. In Stockwell, a small place between London and Clapham, lives Mrs. Margaret Golding, a widow of good repute. For 3 weeks her house has been disturbed, tumblings and beatings, glass and crockery shattered, stones thrown, and once a heavy table overturned, none of it, they say, by any visible hand. Her servant, Anne Robinson, has been named in hawked pamphlets, the devil in Stockwell. The noisy servant, yet Mrs. Golding defends her. Neighbours swear the girl cannot compass such mischief. Because a pamphleteer has named the magistracy for fools, the justice sends me to take proper depositions. I do not believe in boggles. Yet I would rather have a footpad in a dark lane than a crowd in a bright street. The crowd is twice as bold. If these disturbances set tongues to wagging and sheets to selling, worse may follow than broken china. So I go with my quill to good witnesses, and as much skepticism as I can pack. Your affectionate brother, E.L. The house stood in a modest row fronting a lane, cracked fat light parlour windows to the street, a small kitchen behind, 2 chambers above, a closet under the stairs. Everything was plain and tidy, as if the late Mr. Golding, had left his wife the habit of squared counters and counted buttons. Mrs. Golding met me at the door. She was not old, but sorrow had arranged her face into careful strength, hands folded too close. "Sir," she said, "you are from the justice. We are beset day and night. Be easy in your mind and quick with your pen." 2 neighbours stood behind her, Mr. James Fitch, an upholsterer, one who knows weights, and his wife. 3 others already crowded the parlour, come to gape. I disliked it. Crowds breed fancies, but the house had been full 10 days, and to clear it would make a greater stir. The maid, Anne Robinson, brought in a tray. Slight, dark-eyed, quiet. Talk did not break over her as it does over servants. Her eyes weighed the room. "You are Anne Robinson," said I. "You stand accused by some. Your mistress speaks in your defence. I shall need your testimony." She curtsied. A candlestick on the mantel, to my fancy, swayed a hair though the day was still and the windows shut. We had hardly sat when the first disturbance came. I set it down plainly. At that moment my skepticism was as stout as you could wish in any clerk. A tap, then a louder rap, then 2 in quick succession from the inner wall that divides parlour from stairs. "A rat," said Mr. Fitch, with the certainty of men who handle hammers and nails. "Loud as a carpenter's mallet," said his wife. Next, a pewter spoon on the sideboard, well back from the edge, gave a little shiver like a child's, then hopped off and fell. Not a draught, the windows were latched. It did not slither sideways as things urged by air will do. It hopped twice on the floor, then lay still. Pamphlets are made of such trifles. Belief also. Had the spoon stayed, I might have believed I imagined its tremor, but all saw it. And when many see, they talk their seeing into one picture. That picture grows tall. There, said Mrs. Golding, shaking. Will you say the devil's not in it? If we call everything devil, said I, we shall have him dining with us and never see the thief behind the arras. Let me look. I examined mantel, sideboard, wainscot, looked under the table, where a gentleman must often stoop for truth. Found nothing. Then something found me, a small, sharp stone. It struck my shoulder and skipped onto the table with a cluck. The ladies cried out. Mr. Fitch paled. Anne flinched, but did not cry. I went to the window, half believing some boy had pitched stones from without. No mark on the glass. When I raised the sash, the lane lay empty, but for a milkman's cart. Enough, said I. I require a list of all present. We shall proceed with depositions. Ink and the naming of names will cool a company. We set to it. Depositions. Mrs. Margaret Golding, widow. On the last Tuesday in February, between 8 and 9 at night. I being in the parlour and my maid in the kitchen, the plates upon the dresser fell in a heap. The shelf was sound. A glass broke upon the mantel with no one near it. Then a stone fell, God knows whence. Since then, raps and knocks in the walls, small things thrown, and once my table turned over. Also a candlestick that walked 2 inches and dropped. The more that come to see, the worse it goes. I saw my neighbour Fitch pelted with small coal, and his wife struck by a pillow that flew off the settle. I suspect none. I would not harbour a cheat. I cannot say how it comes. I am sore afflicted. Mr. James Fitch, upholsterer. I measured the table. To overturn it would require a strong man at one end or lifting at both. No one was near. It did not creep. It was cast. I weighed the candlestick, a good weight. To slide it so would require an inclined shelf or string. The shelf is even, and no thread present. I would have called the Knox rat or joist. But the fall of stones confounds me, for the windows are unbroken and some stones came from the inner side. I am not credulous. I know what a hidden wire can do. Here is no wire. Mrs. Sarah Fitch, my husband is stubborn of mind. He would have the devil pull his nose before he said devil. When a dish flew from the dresser and near broke my toe, he only stared. The girl, Anne, is often present when these things befall. Yet I have seen 2 at once, one in parlour, one in kitchen. The girl being but one body. I do not say she is innocent or guilty. I say, I am afraid. Anne Robinson, servant. I came to Mrs. Golding in December. I have had no trouble there or anywhere. On that Tuesday, I was in the kitchen chopping suet when I heard the crash. I ran and saw the dishes. I had not touched them. I have since been struck by little stones, and once a brass pot lid fell near me. The bed shook in the night and made me cry. People peer under my apron. I have nothing to hide. If you accuse me, I will be silent. I have done no harm. Her manner was honest, more so because she did not over-protest. Yet the law had taught me, a calm liar is more dangerous than a loud one. I marked her. Mr. Abraham Plummer, bookseller. I printed a tract, The Noisy Servant, or a true account of the disturbances at Stockwell. I meant to show people's credulity. Seeing for myself, I was taken aback. A candlestick jumped down and a chair slid. I confess I am puzzled, and have made a second impression. It sells. He smiled in a way that leaves you doubting whether profit or problem pleases him most. The Reverend Mr. Seagrave, curate. One must not attribute to spirits what men do by fraud or heat of imagination. Yet I have read of the like in Baxter and Glanville. I sat in the parlour and heard a beating in the wainscot that answered, "If thou art of God, give one knock. If of the devil, give two." There came two. This was rash. The devil is cunning. I have counselled prayer and rest, for companies inflame the air with expectation and mislead the senses. Even as I wrote, I felt the complicity of the pen. To write is to make a thing stout. I asked to remain in the house. Sober accounts are not got at noon, with half London come to stare. You must watch the thing at night, when the house is itself and the day's rumours sleep. We made a small company, Mrs. Golding, Anne, the Fitches, myself, and a young constable named Sims, quick-eyed and quiet. We searched the house, back door, fast, windows fastened, under stairs, closet, the canopy of the best bed, nothing but dust and a mummified mouse. By my order, we dragged the heavy table to the parlour centre. I chalked around each foot. I set dice upon the mantel, a pinch of flour by the door, tricks to trap feet, 2 candles on the table. No one to leave his chair without my word, save the maid to tend the fire. If a devil would come, let him come bound in the chains of reason. For an hour there was only watchfulness, where the smallest tremor rings like a shout. Somewhere a coach rolled, a dog barked. I felt a distaste for what I was about. If nothing occurred, I made fools of all. If something, I had dressed the stage for it. Near midnight, a rap like knuckles on a door. Then another. Then 3 quick. Sims jerked up, then sat, colouring. The chalk lines held. The dice sat idle. The candles brightened and guttered, but lived. "Who knocks?" I asked, foolishly. 2 knocks answered, then a pause, then 2. If we had a devil, I could not imagine him patient of our catechism. A small print, the death of Abel, after Lebrun, which had hung 20 years, sprang from the wall. It did not slide. It leapt. The nail remained. The cord was sound. The print fell face down upon the table between the candles and did not strike them. Anne flinched like a child. Then the table moved. It did not lift. It slid an inch. The chalk betrayed it, a white crescent. Then it slid again, soft as a tide under it. "There is some devilish magnet," cried Mr. Fitch, and his hands trembled. If I were reading this, I would laugh. Such accounts demand the faith of miracles without the hope. We did not laugh. We appealed to louder rules. "In the King's name," cried Sims, his hat fallen, "whoever makes these disturbances, desist. I will have no riot." The table flipped. It turned like a fish and came down with such a bang the candles died. Mrs. Golding cried once, Anne screamed. I swore. The sound rolled through the house like an echo in a church. Then astonishment, silent. "Light," I said. "Light. Sparks. Slow flame. Chalk lines like a map of a mistake." Sims checked the flour at the door, smooth as unwalked snow. "Enough. To bed. I will sit up with the constable and the girl. We will keep to the kitchen, where there is less to throw." The kitchen, with its black range like a mouth, comforted me. I can stand among kettles and speak stoutly to the devil. Parlours make metaphysics of a man's fear. We sat long. Anne, 17, from Guildford, formerly with a mercer at Kingston, answered short and well. Sims told of a neat arrest. It steadied him and reminded me of mischiefs proper to men. Near 2 o'clock, the girl grew pale. Sweat stood on her lip. "Sir," she whispered, "I do not think I can keep my head. Do not leave me." The irons chimed of themselves. A pot lid fell, though no wind stirred. A small shower of pebbles, God knows whence, skipped across the floor. Sims shouted his formula with new bravery. I stood because sitting felt like waiting for a ghost. "Pray, sir," said Anne. "Pray." I did not. Not from scorn, but because prayer, I felt, surrendered something, not the event, but my keeping of it. I had come to write, and a man cannot write and kneel at once. Dawn came at last. The house smelt of tallow and fear. We parted, I to lodging and sleep, Sims to duty and to bed. By noon the story had outrun me. In coffee-houses, pamphleteers argued. "It is a plague of credulity," said Mr. Dobson, a philosopher by his own account. "There is a wire in it. There is always a wire." "What wire flips a table?" said I. "A mental one," he answered, smiling like a knife. I returned with Sims and a joiner, Mr. Hargreaves, resolved to do more. Flour on every threshold and sill. Bells on the parlour latch. We would each in turn keep a hand on the table. The maid was forbidden the parlour. "Sir," said Anne, "you may shut me in the coal-hole if you please." "I shall not. Sit where I can see you." If I had had the sense to remove her from the house altogether, but I had come to observe, not to order a household. It needed no night to begin. At 2 o'clock, stones fell near our feet. A brass curtain ring hopped and rolled. A candlestick, with dreadful deliberation, walked a finger's breadth along the mantel and dropped. Mrs. Golding shrieked once, then only breathed hard. "Where is the girl?" demanded Dobson, who had come uninvited, as smoke finds every gap. "In the kitchen," said I. "Then the kitchen should ring," said he. Mr. Hargreaves poked in his head. "Sir." A plate leaped and broke. The girl stood across the room. "Then the devil is acrobatic," said Dobson, smiling that smile I wished to tear off like a mask. 3 more stones fell. I gathered them, small white-dusted things from the lane. They must have come through the window, yet the window was sound. Must, and yet, phrases that haunt such tales as a dog haunts a madman. "Enough," I said. "We will remove the girl for an afternoon. Place her at Mr. Fitch's. If the mischief follows, the law has a name for mischief. If it stays, wits have food." Anne paled. Mrs. Golding flushed, as if I had called her ugly. "I will not have the girl made a show," she said. "She is already a show," I answered, sharper than I ought. "We must learn whether she makes it." Anne fetched her cloak. In the lane, a knot of boys had formed. One tossed a pebble that struck her sleeve. She walked on without turning her head. I admired her for that. Mr. Fitch received her gravely. "I will keep her in my back parlour," said he. "If anything marches, it will march my tools." We waited in Mrs. Golding's. An hour, 2. Quiet. Shame stirred in me, of the sort a man feels who insists and is not answered. Then, in the great cold all week, the ashes leaped backward up the chimney, as if a hand were below. A downward gust scattered grey snow through the room. A small hot cinder, whence it had fire, I know not, fell on my cuff and smirched it. Fetched a girl, I said. We fetched her. She entered, and as if some appointment were kept, 3 stones fell at once, scattered like birds. One struck my head. Blood ran and stung my eye. Anne cried out as if struck herself. Mrs. Golding wept. "Does it follow her?" said Dobson. "It follows us all," said I, dabbing my brow. "But choose your person if you must. A servant or a spirit," he said. "I will not have both." "You will have what you have," I said, "with or without your consent." I meant then to return to town, write my report, and let the matter rot under other business. Yet to leave it so felt a dereliction. I had watched a house battered, a woman humiliated, a girl accused. I could only watch once more. We sat a third night. Myself, Sims, the Reverend Seagrave, I begged him keep his prayers, the Fitches, and Anne. We removed all but what was necessary. The table scented again. I waited with bound almanacs brought from my lodging, thinking to add to its burden. Chalked lines anew. Flower, bells. The house looked a field of childish preparations. Near 11, the tapping began in the wainscot. We ignored it. Small coal trickled into the unlit grate. Then something breathed. You will call this the embellishment of a tired clerk. Keep the word. I keep the thing. It breathed. Not any of us. It had a place behind my left shoulder, then another across the room by the closet. To hear a place breathe is dreadful. The bells on the door gave 2 notes, then were still. The flower at the threshold lay perfect. A candlestick fell, then another. The almanac shivered and one slid 3 inches. Mr. Fitch laid his hand on them, loving matter still. "Who you are," said Sims, more courteous in fear than in duty, "we cannot know." But we would be quiet. Violence followed. I had thought the table's former flit the height. I was wrong. It rose, an inch, no more, and then, dissatisfied with moderation, sprang. I do not think men could do it without levers, and there were none. It turned, it banged, it sprawled like a beast. The almanacs leaped. The candles died. We had our breath and terror for light. "I adjured thee," began the curate, and got no farther. A fist, or what felt like one, struck his mouth. He tasted blood and swallowed God. "The devil," cried Mrs. Fitch, and more prosaically, James, as a table leg struck her shin. Anne, courteous till then, lost her courtesy. She ran to the door. The bells rang pretty as a child's toy. The flower blew up like fog. The latch held. I went to help her. I would not have her shut in a room with a mad table. A stone the size of a man's thumb struck her temple. She folded, more surprised than hurt, as if a loved one had slapped her. I caught her. For an instant I thought her dead, and had time to learn how quick death is. But she breathed. "Open, in God's name," said Mrs. Golding, and the door, obedient to God or to me, yielded. Air rushed in. The lane, whose wicked daytime noise had fed our night, lay innocent. Stars came and went in the draught. Sims, brave fool, returned for the almanacs and bore them out as if knowledge could stand witness. We stood in the lane like a painting of misrule. The curate with bloodied lip, Sims wadded, Mrs. Golding clutching her nightrobe, the Fitches clinging to each other as if their trade could upholster the soul. I, with Anne in my arms, her hair soft as a child's. Distant, a milk cart bell chimed. I laid Anne on the Fitches' threshold. She revived. "Is it done?" she asked, with the simpleness of the truly battered. "Yes," I lied. Morning, no noise. The house lay still, as if satisfied by our surrender. Sims wrote a bluff account full of the word rascals, leaving blank the place where rascals go. The curate had the charity not to sermon us. Dobson did not return. Cleverness and fear make a bad cup. Anne woke with a swelling at her temple. "I will go," she said, before any could shape an accusation. "It follows me." "I do not say so," said Mrs. Golding, stiff. "I say so," said Anne, with a dignity not learned in any school. "If it does not follow, I bear the shame and you the peace. It is the best bargain I can make." What could we do? Terror has its logic, and she had found it. Mrs. Fitch brought bread and boiled milk. I gave a shilling. Sims, awkward, offered only a nod, the comfort of being weighed by a man whose work concerns men, not spirits. At noon, Anne went. She walked down the lane as before. The boys, who sent guilt without proof, did not follow. She did not look back. London swallows servants as the sea swallows fish. That day no stones fell. No candles jumped. The table, tired of dancing, behaved as furniture. We drank tea on it, as if dullness could expiate marvels. 2 days more. Stillness. The town turned again to hangings, sugar, and Drury Lane. Mr. Plummer printed a second tract with contradictions, a service to the public that served his purse more. Mr. Dobson wrote a satire in which a table lectures a magistrate and mocked my chalk. I made my report to Justice Rawlins, as bald as I could. He read and sighed like a man who prefers thieves to enigmas. "Thank you, Mr. Latham," said he. "File it." A week later, I returned to fetch an inkstand I had left. The lane had cleaned itself of wonder. Boys threw stones at a cat. Mrs. Golding greeted me with a tired smile that held a little guilt, as if relief had murdered loyalty. "Sir," she said, softly, "we have had no more. I am grateful to Providence." "And the girl?" said I. "She is with her aunt in Kennington," said Mrs. Fitch, coming by. "Quiet. The people there do not ask." "I am glad," said I, and meant it. We drank tea. The table bore no grudge. At the step, Mrs. Golding spoke low. "If all this is my house's shame, let it shame me only. If you must speak, speak of me, and leave the girl." "Madam," said I have written a paper for the justice. It will lie in a drawer. It names no one but the dead and the impudent." "You are kind," she said, and half lifted a hand toward my sleeve, then let it fall. I went away. That should be the end. But London is endless. Stories have legs. Some months after, on a wet morning, I stopped under an awning where a man with a liar's face and a saint's sails was crying a pamphlet. "A true account," he bawled, "of a servant girl's tricks in Stockwell," with an engraving of the devil who, when found, proved no more than the girl's strings. "Strings," said a woman with fine scorn. "I should like to see the string that moved that table." "Madam," said the bookseller, "I can show you the string that moves you," and held up a penny. It struck me then, with a kind malice, that while the devil, if present, had moved unseen, money and talk move all day with their strings showing. I bought the tract to see if it named Anne. It did not. It saved its names for those made to look foolish, and I was at their head. In St. Paul's churchyard I went into a shop for a quire of paper. Behind the counter, moving as quiet as a bird at a window, was Anne Robinson. She felt the shade of a stare and looked up. For a moment, the Stockwell house stood between us like a person. "Mr. Latham," she said, before I could choose kindness or obedience, for I had meant to leave her privacy unbought, "you are well." "I am," said I. "And you?" "I too," she said. It has been quiet. The faintest smile. One cannot say that of St. Paul's. "Do you? Is there?" I stumbled. "There are troubles you do not name, lest you breed them." "Only customers," said she. "And the rain." I laid a shilling for my paper and another for hers. Her fingers were quick and honest. As I turned, she reached and touched my sleeve, the smallest thing, and with it undid a knot I had not known sat in me. "Sir," she said, "thank you for chalking lines." "It did no good," I said. "It did to me," said she, with that same lame dignity. "It kept the world one night in its place." I went out into the rain thinking we draw chalk lines not to keep devils out but to convince ourselves our furniture obeys. When it refuses, we are humbled. When it obeys again, we are ungrateful and forget. I shall not forget. To Justice Rawlins I delivered a starved report. To you, reader, I deliver this. A house in Stockwell was afflicted. Reasonable people saw what their reason could not hold. A girl was blamed and went away. The trouble abated. None of this proves guilt, or innocence, or devil, or trick, or mind. The town laughed. My head bled. A curate swallowed blood and God together. A table flipped like a fish. Chalk, flour, and bells failed. Afterwards the world went on with sugar and the price of coal. There is an archive of such things which is no archive at all. The thud in the wall, the breath in a place, the shame of a good woman, the dignity of a poor one, the cowardice and courage of spectators, the exact weight of a candlestick, cherished by a man who loves weights. Its only cover is the paper of a clerk who ought to write no more than a brief, and writes all the same, for to have seen and not set down is another kind of lie. If there was a wire, I did not find it. If there was a devil, he kept his name. If a girl's heart in pain beat a house into answer, I could not weigh it. I have placed the stones that struck us in a little box with a label. One bears a smear of my blood and a fleck of tallow. The lid fits. It is the only thing in this business that closes. Edward Latham, Clerk to Justice Rawlins, Michaelmas Term, 1772. You've been listening to Britain's Haunted Tales. From the disturbances at Stockwell to countless other strange accounts, our isles are never free of whispers. Subscribe for more stories from the shadows. Until next time, keep the lights low and your ears open.